Hello, uh, another episode of The Healing Path. And I'm Laura Donnelly from Dancing with Ease, Body Brain Balance. And these are conversations. They're just conversations. So if you're watching and you want to make comments, we'll include your comments. If you have questions, we'll try and answer them in the middle of the conversation, just like if we were sitting around a coffee table. And however, unlike a coffee table necessarily, the topic is healing. And the modalities are all different on this show. Everybody has a different modality that resonates with them. And the universal theme in the show is that all healing starts with and in ourselves. Something in ourselves determines that healing will happen. And then it does happen, but it sometimes doesn't look like we expect it will look. So part of this series is to share different people's healing paths, what they have found that worked for them and helped them, and to give you information so that if something somebody has discovered along the way helps you, you are able to take advantage of that and enhance your healing journey. So I will bring on Imogen and Shay, and they will tell you a little bit about themselves. I've known both of them mostly online for a couple of years, and Imogen and I met in person at a long time ago, 2018, at an Alexander Technique conference. So here's Imogen, and here comes Shay. So good to see you guys.
Thank you. Very good to be here.
So did you want to share anything about your work, either or both of you, one after the other, or?
Sure, I can say a bit about how I got started with Alexander Technique and how that maybe morphed or over time into what I call body intelligence, my particular approach, and how I first met Shay, and then maybe Shay can jump in with a bit of her story and kind of take it from there. Does that sound
perfect? Sounds perfect.
So, like you, I'm an Alexander Technique teacher, Laura, as you know. And yes, we did meet in Chicago in 2018, but we'd known each other online. We were already friends by the time we met in person. So that's really cool. You can really make true friendships online.
And you can support each other. I mean, I think sometimes in the world we live in, people are thinking, well, I can't get what I need. I can't meet people. I can't connect to people who could help me. And it's a different framework, but I have found it really wonderful for connecting, for meeting, and even for working together and healing on different areas.
Absolutely. Like you, I really enjoy working online with my clients, and I found it to be different. It obviously doesn't offer some things that in-person sessions can offer, and Alexander Technique traditionally includes a kind of gentle touch to guide movement and invite release. Obviously that does not exist when working with someone online. But what does exist, and what I think is really powerful and clear, is Alexander is very mindful. It invites you to think in specific ways to encourage or invite more ease, more release of excess tension that indirectly will improve your posture and how you move and how you do all sorts of things. And when you work online, you're working solely with the person themselves to get them thinking for themselves and being aware for themselves. And maybe the steps are smaller, maybe the progress is more gradual, but I think there's more agency and there's more ownership. And I think, getting back in our roundabout conversational way to our topic, that aspect, I think, probably makes it more accessible and not just accessible, but definitely more accessible for people with trauma, because anything that was too big and that wasn't really their own choice, like if you with your hands took somewhere too opened up, for instance, that could be not a good thing. Now, Shay, you please feel free to jump in. I've had in-person lessons with me as well as a lot of online work.
Yeah, you poor thing. Yeah, for me, that sense of the non-coercion that I feel when working with you, with the constructive thinking and the noticing, it takes away so much of the threat that a traumatized person would feel by being told to do something. And reclaiming agency is such a big part of the recovery. And for a lot of us, and like you say, even something that was good, that's positive, can be overwhelming because our systems are so easily overwhelmed when we're not regulated. So even a good thing needs to be titrated little bits at a time. And I really appreciate your work because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just thinking back to our first session together, that I had already been doing a lot of work online, and included even in my in-person work a lot of this aspect of it, where you're completely thinking for yourself. There was no touch at all, for parts of the lesson. And like Laura, my work's greatly influenced by the primal Alexander work of Mia Morales, who exclusively teaches online these days, I believe. Mm. So, and he has a very simple step-by-step approach to helping you learn how to think constructively. You use that term, which is,
it's one of the things for me about it is I don't use the word agency, like that doesn't come to my mind, but it's choice. And I think agency is choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And to have the choice what to think right now, and to have the space in my brain to say, these current thoughts are not helpful. These thoughts are making me more agitated. And then something to do, some specific steps to do. And what I love about your work, Shay, is that you have all the words. Well, no, you do. I'm like, I'll go on your Facebook page and you're talking about things and you have the neurological and physiological words and the integration, and I know it works. I know how to do it, but I don't really have a sense of the language. And so that when you explain it, I'm like, oh, that's why that works.
Mm. Thank you. That is so gratifying to hear, because that's what I really feel. Is like, this is stuff we all do already, but we don't really think about doing it, and we don't understand what we're doing. So if we have the language and the concepts, that can change our perception and use of it so much that we can really use it for our benefit rather than just kind of haphazardly not paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, it sounds like your experience a bit of the same thing, Laura, that, we'd be in a session together and we'd be doing some practice of something, and Shay will say, neuroscience backs that up because this, and this, and it's like,
how many times you've heard that?
It got me very excited about it, because it's really, I knew the work I do help people, but it validates it somehow more when you've got this language and understanding of why.
Yeah, it's not just, oh, this, I know this makes me feel better. It's, oh, this is based on actual science that has to do with our bodies and how they work. that it adds not just another layer of understanding, but it actually makes it really exciting. The more that I learn about this, the more excited I get, because it shows me how the possibilities are just enormous for us to heal ourselves and each other through relational neuroscience.
Yes, you have something else on some of your pages about the healing relationship.
Mm.
And I think that that's another piece of this work it's very intangible, but produces tremendously tangible results. And I had a friend that she did dream workshops and things, and she called it holding space.
Mm-hmm.
So they would hold the space for people to be able to share their dreams, which could be terrible dreams, scary dreams, good dreams, weird dreams, it could be anything, but the space to be and to share, even if you just share with one other person. The other thing about this Primal Alexander work is that when somebody else witnesses your shift to just a tiny bit of ease in your system, in a situation where before you had no ease in your, your body, your breath, your muscles, whatever, and they can say back to you, I saw that. That was great.
Yes, the witnessing is so important. Yeah, in interpersonal neurobiology, we say my nervous system needs to see your nervous system seeing me, and that's exactly what you described. And that's where our sense of safety comes from. If you're seeing me and you're responding like I would expect you to my tale of woe or joy or whatever, then I know that you can see me and resonate with me. And then I feel safe with you because my nervous system gets those safety cues from yours that we're on the same page.
I also think what has been important and helpful in me working with you, Shay, as a trauma survivor and someone dealing very much with trauma yourself, as you also are a trauma awareness activist and artist, right? But it's hard for us to listen to other people's traumas, or all things that have happened to people, and
yes,
this work helps me I think hold that space that you're talking about, helps me stay with myself, not turn away like, oh, I don't want to hear that, so that I can stay with you, but also I don't lose myself in the horror of it, or whatever.
Yes, that's a very important thing.
So I think that's both helpful to me as a person.
Yes.
But it's also helpful to you or anyone else dealing with stress or trauma, because I can be with them, but I'm not going to add fuel to the fire. And I'm also not going to turn away. And hopefully I might even give a little bit of ease in my presence, because I'm working with myself, which would help hopefully calm. That's that relationship. You had a good term for that.
Yeah.
Forgotten already.
Relational neuroscience or the interpersonal neurobiology. Yeah, and that's exactly it. When we work together and say, I'm telling you about something horrible I went through, and you witness that from a place of being okay in yourself, you're sending safety signals to my nervous system, which picks up on that. Our nervous system scan our environment for safety 30 times a second. So if you're there feeling like I'm okay, I have the resources to hold this space and witness this trauma, that tells me that it's okay. There's somebody in the world that's okay with what happened to me. And that's so vital, because a huge part, especially of the relational trauma, which is, developmental trauma. Almost all my trauma is relational, because, a car accident, big deal. That's nothing compared to, the things that I went through as a child, or, compared to a harm at a caregiver's hands. That's a very different level of trauma. And so for me to have somebody who can actually witness that is really, really important, and having that safety. And like you said, it's safer for you to have that capacity to be with me, but also have that distance that you are still yourself, and you're not being re-traumatized or traumatized secondarily by hearing my trauma, and you're not being sucked in, like you said. Like, you could get really mad with me too and get all janked up as well. We could just, both of us go off and do Thelma and Louise or something. Or you can be that calm presence that tells my nervous system, oh, it's okay now, and I can actually be more present in my body in this moment. And that's so valuable.
And I'm thinking that that's, I think what a lot of people might do is what I kind of described. One, kind of shut down the conversation and not want to talk about it, or stay there, but they sort of have a wall up, listening, but then not really there. And I'm sure you've sensed that in people before.
Yeah, especially with doctors and therapists. And I've come to realize, oh, it's because they're traumatized too. Pretty much everybody in the world is traumatized now by one thing or another. If they weren't before COVID, they are now. And, med school by itself is traumatic. Even if they had a perfect life other than that, that's a very traumatic. It's too much for too long. And so that changes their neurophysiology and makes it harder for them to witness other people's. And if you're being triggered, if I say something about what happened to me, and there's a part of you that remembers that happened to you too, but you can't remember it consciously, you're going to put your wall up to protect yourself. And that's understandable. So to have somebody like you who can witness in a safe way for both of us is extremely valuable.
I think the other thing about it for me that it helps with me, and I am by no means perfect, because I am a conditioned helper, right? If somebody's carrying too many plates, I'll take some of your plates. I'll take some of your grocery bags. I will help. Before I even consciously realize somebody needs help, I'm moving in the direction of trying to provide support, which is often too much, or too fast, or maybe even not necessarily needed. And so when I practice this work on myself, I can feel it, and then I can come back to myself, and then I can say, do you need a hand? And then this gives back again the agency to the person. Now, I have a question for you, because sometimes people are in such a state that they don't know what they need. And I feel like it's invasive for me to offer something. So sometimes I give them a choice, and sometimes the last thing they need is more choice. So, and like you said, however we were before COVID, whatever had happened to us, whatever degree of trauma people had lived through, the baseline pressure has gone up, which just has to make everything a little bit more, or a lot more, problematic. And so like dysregulation. I mean, somebody can get dysregulated because their alarm clock didn't go off and they're late for work, right? That they can feel like that's a big deal. Other people just say, better call the boss, late again, and just kind of flow with it,
Yeah, it really has to do with what resources the person has inside, and their past experience and their history. If, somebody who's really uptight about being late for work might have been in an abusive situation where there was a power differential, maybe in a previous employment or with a parent or whatever, and the other person maybe didn't have that or had the opportunity to recover from that.
Right. And since we're talking about the holidays too, with this event, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm like, the holidays, I don't stop doing anything so that I can do all the extra things that come with the holidays.
Mm.
I don't get rid of 3 clients so that I can go to 3 job-related parties. I just stick the job-related parties into my schedule, which actually, it's not a big deal, okay? It's people I want to see, whatever, but it does raise your stress level.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have other things, then there's other things about, family. And Imogen and I work with Caregivers Central, and a lot of times the holidays are really hard for caregivers because maybe they can't do what they used to do because they have to stay with the person they're taking care of. Maybe the person they were taking care of has passed away, and so now they have a holiday. They have to figure out, how am I going to re-engage with my traditional holiday if it always happened at that person's house that passed away. My grandma used to hold the whole, honest, she held the whole thing. So that was, that, and it's good when you can pass the baton, but there's also something sad about passing the baton. And they're my neighbors. It's a good thing that I do not have light envy, because I'm telling you, the guy has decorated his whole house. He's so excited. It's his first house.
Aww.
It's his first Christmas in his first house.
Aww.
He must have every color of light in the rainbow on his house. I put up the big dog, which my friend Paige said was Clifford the dog, which I didn't know was a St. Bernard. It's a blow up thing as tall as his garage. But if I was somebody who felt like I must look like Scrooge, I don't even have a wreath on my door, then I'm giving myself stress and grief about the holiday, about how I approach the holiday. And then we won't go with the Christmas carols, but anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of a holding yourself up to an external standard. And that's where the issue is, not that you have a problem with how you handle the holidays, but how you are judged by, or feel you're judged by, everybody else out there who's doing what you're not.
Yeah. And at the same time, I'm like, I love everybody's different response. So I got one neighbor, and he decorates his tractor with light. It's hysterical. But some of the other pressures are going to parties, social obligations with people that you maybe don't necessarily really like, that you wouldn't choose to spend time with if it wasn't the company holiday party. It's one of the things about being self-employed, isn't it, Imogen, that we don't have to do that anymore?
Yay! That's good incentive right there. And the dreaded holiday parties, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about the stress. I think almost everyone can relate to at least some, even people who love the holidays. I think they can also relate to, there is some stress involved because there's more to do. And that for many people it's a lot of stress. And if you have some sort of trauma, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Shay, but you might have memories coming up that trigger you about, or you've got to see a family member who you really don't want to see, or maybe you don't, or you remove yourself from that and then you're not involved at all, and you get to miss the parts that you would like to be involved with.
Yeah, it's very complex. Trauma often wrecks holidays for survivors. I pretty much try to ignore them because there's really nothing good for me in them, because they've been so, used against me by, my caregivers. So yeah, it's very easy to get triggered by all those things, or just being stressed, like even just thinking about, well, you're going to go to grandma's house and there's going to be somebody there that you don't want to see, and you want to see everybody else, but that person's there. That alone can dysregulate a nervous system So having the ability to recognize when that starts, oh, I'm feeling dysregulated now. I'm feeling outside of my window of tolerance. I need, and to identify that and know what you can do to bring yourself back to regulation before you get spun out of control is really valuable.
That sounds like, that sounds like a lifeline.
Yes.
So I'm thinking when we first started and I started introducing myself, we sort of just rolled with the conversation. But Shay didn't really tell about our work. I think that might be a useful thing to be part of our discussion.
Thank you. Yeah.
Your, a little bit about your background, but your experience working with me and what in particular about the way, and you've mentioned a little bit in passing, you think is particularly helpful to, I was going to say caregivers, people dealing with trauma. And I do think of many caregivers, it is actually a traumatic situation.
Yeah. My favorite definition of trauma is too much or too little for too long.
Oh, that's powerful.
So
yeah,
many.
It takes the shame off of it too. It's not like, you can decide, oh, well, that person didn't really get traumatized because it was only, the dog only bit them once versus however many times, there's none of that. It's just, it was too much. And it doesn't matter if it was not too much for somebody else, because it's about what you have, your resources at that moment, and whether you have the resources to deal with it. So yeah, when we first started, I can't believe we've been working together 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first came to you, I couldn't notice ease at first. I remember I cried that first exercise.
Well, what I remember is you told me everything hurts from like here down, because I was in what I was doing in this very initial session with Shay is just asking her what she noticed about herself, that little scan that we do, right, Laura? Mm-hmm. But then to regroup and say, well, is there somewhere where you notice that feels a little bit better than that place? And we went through a process that we will be introducing in a workshop that we're doing next Monday. And I think you really surprised yourself that there were one or two places.
Yeah, I remember right there, like, oh, there's a little ease right there. But that was very surprising to me because I never even had a concept of ease in my body before. It was kind of revolutionary.
Really, I think that's what I remember you saying, something about I've never had that positive moment even of
of feeling ease right there. I spend a lot of my life up here or somewhere in this range because it's been unsafe for me to be in my body. So to have there's a spot there, it's not up here, it's actually in my body. That was revolutionary. And as you were describing that, of course my thoughts went to the scan, and I went, if I scan right now, it's a whole different experience compared to how it was 4 years ago. I can notice ease and I can notice places where there isn't pain and my pain levels are down. And I think a lot of my recovery from trauma in the last 4 years is due to working with you and the skills that you've helped me develop. And I have to say, because I always say this, and it's one of the things I love most about you, is you're just a brilliant way of helping us figure out how we can incorporate these techniques in our daily living instead of adding it to like, oh, it's time to stop and do this now. Take 15 minutes and do my PT or whatever. It's, oh yes, I'm getting ready to leave. And this is my pause where I practice this for 30 seconds and do that throughout the day. That's so important to have that, the way we rewire our nervous system is through a steady drip, drip, drip infusion of regulation, kindness, kind interactions, compassion. So if I'm checking in with myself 10 times a day for 10 seconds, that's going to give me a much better response than, spending 2 hours meditating. Not to knock meditation at all. It's a wonderful thing, and people can do amazing regulation with it. And for people who are traumatized, that's really terrifying. Meditation doesn't work for us. Our brains are not wired for that, and it's actually unsafe for us to go inward like that because it's overwhelming.
I love that, the drip, drip, drip. And it is really powerful for looking at both how small a thing you can do for yourself that is actually healing, and then the incremental building, that when you repeat that and repeat that and repeat that, change happens.
Yeah, that's neuroscience backs this. That's because neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're firing neurons that say, I actually noticed some ease right here, you're going to reinforce that wiring for that ease right there. And that's going to make it easier to notice ease in other places, and to just wire your nervous system for some calm in a very gentle way.
And the gentleness is, I love this, it's like, well, I tell people that this will cut through your BS like a sword made from a hummingbird feather.
Oh, that's a powerful image. I love that.
Well, the thing is, the things we hang on to, we make so big because we invest energy into them. We invest thought into them. And one of the things Imogen and I work on in caregivers, and when we work on projects together, we start with these ideas, because if you infuse this ease in whatever you do, whatever you build is built on a foundation of ease. And it's so easy to get caught up in ideas. It's so easy to spin your brain really fast and forget to pause. Just pause.
I took a breath just when you gave.
Yes. Yeah, the power of the pause is just really, it actually blows my mind how important that is and what it can do for us if we make a practice of it, whatever kind of pause we take. One of the things I do with pauses is I take walks in the forest pretty much every day, and it's just so beautiful here, and I take tons of pictures. And when I email my most beautiful doctor, who really gets it because he's in neuroscience, I send him a picture from my walk as a pause, a 20-second pause. And he knows if he stops and looks at that picture for 20 seconds, it's going to help build him a sense of safety and change his neurophysiology at that point in his day. So he opens those religiously and always tells me, yes, thank you for the pause. And he keeps talking about it now. It's just so gratifying to know that he really understands the value of that.
Well, I think this is really part of the importance of the work that you're doing in terms of recognizing how many people, even in, shall we say, quote unquote, helping professions, are themselves traumatized. And I was thinking about this too, but I talk about this thing called, I call it, like I'm a descendant of pioneers, right? This is a traumatic experience, generational trauma for these people who moved out here, for whom if they failed at any single thing, anything, they might not have enough food for the winter, and they and their whole family would die. This creates a thing that gets passed down from generation to generation. I was not a pioneer. I did not, walk over thousands of miles to get here. I didn't have to gather cow chips to have a heat. You know, I didn't, you know, but there's that under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always kind of crazy. I saved everything. You know, I could turn this into something else. I could sew this as a patch on something. You know, don't throw that away. I might be able to use it. You know. And my first husband, he said to me, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like,
married the wrong guy.
"That's why we're not married now." But I said to him, "Well, I either lived through the first depression, and this is hanging on me, or I'm preparing for the next depression." Well, trust me, when COVID came up, all that stuff kind of lit up. And I'm like, okay, I can sew. I have enough fabric in this house to repair every piece of clothing I have for the next 10 years, if I have to do that. Now, is that reasonable? Maya. I'm not sure that it's reasonable or not. But that's, you know, that's there. And you know, and who knows what this whole COVID thing has bubbled up for everybody.
In different ways.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and that just the physical distancing has had a huge effect on us, especially because we call it social distancing, which is not what we actually want to do. We want to be sociable, but we want to physically distance for the safety. And because, I mean, all the experts told us, you know, isolate yourself, don't leave your house, don't even go for a walk on the street. We've become so separated from each other that we haven't had the opportunity to even do like small witnessing. Like, okay, you order all your groceries online now because of COVID. You're not interacting with your cashier, your favorite cashier, and making a little joke and giving them a little boost in their day that they can then turn and give to the next person who shows up in line. All of that's been heavily damaged, and it actually hurts our nervous systems and our brains and our minds. In relational neuroscience, it's a relatively new field that encompasses a lot of other fields, and it shows us that the brain, mind, and relationships integrate and alter one another. So I'll use my beautiful doctor as an example. Because of his steady drip, drip, drip kindness over the last 14 months or so, my nervous system is a lot healthier, and that makes my brain actually integrate more so it can function better. And that changes my affect and my ability to function and my quality of life. And that's making me want to look at more relationships, which I never thought I would do because they suck.
There's so
Go, Imogen.
So there's so many points from what I wanted to pull from what Shay and you both have been talking about the last few minutes. But one is that I just remembered, I follow Brené Brown's work. I like her stuff, but she always talks about we are wired for connection. Mm-hmm. Connection with each other, and that's a big part, and that just seemed to tie in a different way of saying what you were saying.
Yeah, I always say it's a birthright and a biological imperative.
Yeah, we need it as human beings, connection with other human beings.
Yeah, and we can die from lack of it. You know, all the studies of the orphanages in Russia where the babies weren't touched and they died from, you know, they call it failure to thrive, but it was actually lack of the psychosocial support that's necessary, you know, in particular in infancy and early childhood, but in adulthood too. There's indication that older people often die from lack of the psychosocial support, even though it looks like heart disease and all the chronic disease or overdose or whatever. It's actually because they're not having the connection that they need to keep going.
The other thing that I want, sorry, Laura.
I just was take over just while I know and take a breath.
The other thing I want to mention is that Shay's mentioned her doctor a couple of times. And what I wanted to say is that, while I would love to say that, you know, Alexander Technique and Body Intelligence is the only thing that has helped Shay, it's not at all. And it has helped I think, support you doing the other interventions that are really helping you. Could you say a little bit more about that, or am I overstating?
Yeah, no, yeah. Especially, I developed medical PTSD after non-consensual surgery almost 3 years ago, which is a really horrific experience. Talk about lack of agency, and has changed my body, permanently, without my input. And so I'm terrified of hospitals and doctors, and especially being knocked out again. And yet I need medical care. So when I do go for medical care, the body intelligence is very helpful. I can't say it fixes everything, but it certainly makes everything easier. And it's helped me. It's helped me feel safer. So I last week I had a procedure in the OR of the hospital where I was harmed previously. Second time this year, actually. I had one back in March. It's the stellate ganglion block. It's a nerve block that has been shown to help. It gives the autonomic nervous system the opportunity to recalculate the current threat level. So instead of being stuck in super hypervigilance that it's been stuck in since, I was tortured, my body can go, oh, wait, actually, it's not that bad here. And it can downregulate a little bit. So it's a really helpful procedure. And this one needs to be in the OR. So the difference between the last time, which was 7 months ago, and this time was huge to my nervous system. I was able to be a lot more, feel safer because of practicing these techniques. And I still dissociated like crazy and gave the 3-minute neurobiology lesson to the nurse, and had some issues, but because I've been practicing, I could access some of that. And, I couldn't feel safe in that hospital, but I could notice there wasn't any danger, and that helped my nervous system, feel a little more at ease. If I hadn't done this work, I probably would have turned around and walked back out. I don't think I could have dealt with being in there, even for something I desperately needed.
I know, Laura, we talk about ease being a continuum, and it's just which direction are you going in? So you were able to not continue in the direction of unease, tension. You were able to, yes, you weren't able to become at ease, but you were able to step it back a little bit.
Because I could pause.
Well,
when I felt myself up at the ceiling, I went, oh, wait, let's see. and I could do something about it instead of just, being gone the whole time.
And the pause is just this space. When everything takes over, whether it's an idea for me or a past behavior, I'm no longer present, and I'm no longer able to make choice. I'm also no longer able to assess what's really happening, because I went into some other space, headspace. I love how they say these things. Went into headspace. Okay, well, but also maybe a past time, and I'm spending my energy not here. And even if not here is not great, if I know where I am, like you did, you made choices and you were able to get the care that you need. The other thing I experience in my own body is if I'm paying attention to the ease in myself, and say I take aspirin for a headache, it works faster in my system, because tension, as well, like we always say, tension anywhere is tension everywhere. And so if my head is tight and my blood vessels are tight, then anything I take to help me is going to have to work harder to get me the help I need. if I'm easy, whatever I take can flow into my system better.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And your body can respond to it better. Your body has the choice to respond to it rather than the choice, rather than the mandate to do whatever the nervous system says is necessary for protection. That's one of the amazing things about our nervous systems is when we are in self-protection mode, we cannot be connected. We automatically disconnect in order to protect ourselves. So making the choice to connect is often a way to bring us back out of that, if we can make that choice.
that's really powerful. I hadn't thought about that. But you get all the shapes, all the positions that the body makes to self-protect itself are withdrawal shapes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have a couple people here, and Alice Miriam, and Paige is here. Their names popped up, and Alice says she has a love-hate relationship with people.
Oh, I do too.
Probably by the time you're,
I love it, but I wouldn't love it to be on my own 100% of the times. I need times of connection and time on my own. So.
Yeah, well, that love-hate thing is actually really important to know about regarding trauma. We develop adaptive relational styles depending on our early environment, and because my parents' response was so misattuned and cruel and contemptuous, I learned the disorganized attachment style, which means I'm desperate for that kind of attachment, for connection with people, and I'm terrified of it. So I'm like, come here. No, get away. No, they're like the cat, right? Come here. Yeah, get away. Because I'm terrified of what I need, because my parents were the source of terror. And that can be not even, they don't even have to be the source of direct terror, like neglect. A lot of people be like, well, my parents were just really busy. They didn't, they weren't hurtful. They were just busy. But to a child, that's the not too little for too long. And it is a kind of trauma, and it can change your relational style.
So you guys have a workshop coming up. I know I'm going to run it across the bottom here of the screen.
We've been discussing and having a conversation for a long time, which
I think that the concepts are important so that people will know how you work together, and how that this is not okay, if this, then do that kind of workshop. It's, it's not this is your problem, do that to fix it. It's,
no magic fix, no. Hooray, right?
Hooray. I know it's one of the things that in online marketing, they say, well, tell the people how you're going to solve their problem. And I'm like, I'm not. They're going to solve their own problem. And they're like, don't tell them that. And I'm like, oh man. So your workshop, what are you thinking? How are you going to weave some of these ideas in so people can have more ease and peace during the holiday season?
So this is actually our first time collaborating to lead a workshop together. We've worked together and we know each other and become friends over these past 4 years. So the workshop will be an introduction to body intelligence and to some neurobiology of trauma, right, Shay? And it's just 1.5 hours next Monday evening. So it's 6:30 Eastern. And it's online. And I wanted to say, because we talked about the importance of connection, and of course, in-person connection is important. And it's really surprising in the right environment how intimate a connection can be online. I think Laura and I know that ourselves, because we've only met one time, and we're good friends, and we definitely knew each other before we literally met. and working in an Alexander group of teachers together that was very, it's just very personal. And because we were connecting through this work where we're all working to be more at ease and be more open, and you can sense that connection. It's more than sense. You
get it through the screen.
Relational interpersonal neurobiology, I think, that we experience all the nonverbals, even online, especially if you're in a space where you are consciously tuning in and connecting.
Well, and the beauty of the online environment is, say you're caregiving for somebody and you can't leave your home. You can still enjoy the support, the information, and the community. You know, now it isn't like I can just stick my arm out here and give you guys a hug. So that
bit's missing.
That physical part of the relationship is missing. But I know from meeting when we met in Chicago, it was like I had always known you. The way, like when I don't see one of my friends from college, my college roommate, when I don't see her for a long time, but when I see her, she is her. And it's just like, you know. So from Zoom, one of the good things is that you have audio, which you can hear when somebody's voice relaxes and becomes more at ease. You can see when their energy, every time, Shay, every time you would tap your head, it would get a little easier. and because of my baby language of mirror neurons, we all respond to that, to the shared thing. And there's something about shared growth that amplifies growth. So although this is like running across the bottom and you would have to write it on your thing, I will put it in the comments for everybody who wants to check it out and register. And I also loved that you put the very kind and generous payment schedule for people, so that if somebody is having financial trouble because they lost their job due to COVID or whatever, there's a very, very basic payment thing. And if somebody's doing really well, because like some people's businesses like took off like gangbusters during COVID, and they wanted to support somebody else, you also gave that option, which I thought was very generous and thoughtful.
Thank you. And we did it for exactly the reasons that you said. We want to be able to include as many people as possible, and we don't want that to be dependent completely on someone's financial situation.
So if either of you have something that you would like to share as a closing, I mean, I'm just so grateful for the time to be with you and to hear more about your journeys, and to I'll be going back and listening to it, writing down all the right terms.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. It's such a pleasure.
It's really fun. I enjoy these so much. And the whole thing is that healing happens. It doesn't always look like we think it's going to look. And it doesn't, most often does not happen in the time frame that I would dictate that it should happen. That would be me.
Yeah.
But when I can be at ease with it, you know, Imogen, like we talk, if I can be at ease with the process,
yeah,
then it actually goes a little faster. And when I'm like, oh, this is not happening fast enough. Oh, well, where did I go? I went on your attention scale. Imogen,
yeah.
And so I just thank you guys for coming and sharing. And it's so good to see you. And
yeah.
And I'm telling everybody, we did not plan to all wear red. We were in tune.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura. And I just encourage people, if they're interested, to come along. We only have 3 or 4 spots left. And you will learn a practice to help calm your nervous system that we'll teach you in the workshop, and Shay will be able to tell you why it works.
And we'll have fun. We always have fun with these.
Always have fun. So
Definitely. Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.